what's up, everybody? It's me, Shawn. I just wanted to kick off our YouTube page with our first ever episode. So kind of a throwback to Richard and I's very first attempt ever. This is episode 00. So, we're going to talk basically about the origin of how we got started. The idea behind this is all in this episode. In advance, it's a little rough. I apologize for that. Again, it was Richard and I's first time ever doing an episode. So if this is the first time you've ever seen Language of Bromance, give this episode a shot, but go out to our iTunes page or our website, languageofbromance.com, and check out our newest one. I swear we have gotten a lot better. So in this episode, since it's quite a bit older, don't really have all the stuff and details of our kind of housekeeping, if you will. So you can always visit languageofbromance.com. We're on Facebook, at Language of Bro on Twitter. Languageofbromance.com is our website. So sit back, relax, and listen to our origin story.
I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of bromance.
That sounds cute.
It is cute. This is our first foray into the digital medium.
So basically, we've talked about doing something like this for a long time. I think I mentioned it in passing once, like years ago. And then I graduated college and moved away, and then you brought it up to me. And I think just finally, like, we just got the motivation to be like, all right, let's do this. Let's go forward with this.
It's one of those things that we kind of bounced back and forth. Like, you were like, oh, we should do this. And I'm like, that's a great idea. And then we'd forget about it. And then, like, about 6 months later, I'd be like, oh, we should do this. Hey, that's a great... And then you'd be like, oh, that's a great idea. And then we'd play tennis with it.
Yeah, it was just something I don't think either one of us, like, we had motivation at the wrong time. Like, I'd have motivation to do it, but you're kind of like, yeah, let's do it, and then just kind of fall off.
Exactly.
And then vice versa. I think this time it's kind of like I'm at a point in my life where, like, I've tried a few different things. I tried programming on my own. I tried, just doing some kind of art writing type stuff, and finally it's like I want to do something that I can get things out there sooner, a little bit quicker. And
exactly.
What really got me going on this is, you and I game a lot, play Dungeons and Dragons, movies and stuff. That's kind of the big things we're in, movies, comics. We've got some decent life experience, I would say. And the last time that we were gaming, you showed up a little bit later, so you didn't get to play a character. I was DMing at the time.
Stupid work.
I know. And as I leave, I'm like, I had to hurry up and leave because Tiffany wasn't feeling well, my wife. And so I was like, well, I got to get back home. And, like, I stopped and, like, Rich is here, and I haven't talked to him in months. So it's like, how you doing? You're like, yeah, good. We get like a 10-minute conversation in, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, we just don't have the opportunity to talk much.
Exactly.
And it's one of those things, you call when I'm busy. I call when you're busy. Actually, I think you do more calling than I do. But just doing this just kind of gives us the opportunity to be like, all right, this day a week we're going to sit down and just BS about whatever's, on our minds.
This is our way to force each other to actually sit and talk. Honestly, my big motivation, it's sad to say that I get my motivation from other people, or it's I get inspired, but I get mine's from Kevin Smith, where he's like, you know what, he's like, he has his own show, and it was basically a way for him to sit down with his best friend, and he's like, that dude's a funny motherfucker, and it's a way for me to sit down with my best friend, force myself to sit down with my best friend, and talk about whatever and make each other laugh. And I'm like, why don't I do that? I have people I know. I was like, my best friend's miles away, and we talk on the phone, and it's great. But I mean, it's nice for me. It's going to be nice, 5 years, 10 years down the road, to actually have a audio record of like, oh, remember this thing, oh, remember that thing.
Yeah, he just had an awesome, it was where he was sitting down talking with somebody. It was like a forum type setup, and he was just saying, like, he's going to have these conversations with his parents. I mean, we're going to have these conversations now where, 15 years from now,
you'll be talking with, your kids, or I'll be talking with my kids or somebody I know, and be like, well, it's one time me and my best friend sat down and just BS'd about this, brand new movie that came out. Instead of just being able to talk about it, you can actually say, well, no, let me hit play right here, and we can actually listen to it. And it's just going to kind of allow for that timelessness to go on.
Exactly.
So it's interesting you bring up Kevin Smith. So I was kind of thinking about, probably a little bit in the future of this, but I was thinking about like the first time that I ever kind of saw you, and I was curious what you thought, when you saw me, like when our eyes met and we had that, did we just become best friends moment?
Exactly. We both were working in the same spot. Actually, I wouldn't say it was probably it wasn't the first time we met. I remember, at least this is my first memory where I was like, yeah, this is a dude I can hang out with. You were you were having a conversation with somebody else, and because I'm nosy, I eavesdrop. You were having a conversation with someone else, and I'm pretty sure it was about the Saw movies.
Okay.
And of course, I chime in. You were big into horror movies. I mean, you still are, but you were really big into horror movies at the time.
Yeah. Back then, that's like I was on like bloodydisgusting.com like every day. Like, what's the next scary movie coming out?
Right. I think you were going into like the 8 films to die for. Like you were trolling those pretty hard, and I said, I just chimed in, and I was like, you want to see a crazy movie? I was like, Last House on the Left. And this is before they actually made a remake. So we're talking about the original Last House on the Left. It was the first movie that Wes Craven ever directed. It was a weird movie. Like, it's to me, like, I watch it and it feels like a snuff movie. Like, you ever seen that thing 8mm, and Nicolas Cage like sits down with this old lady, and she's like, I found this, reel to reel, and he puts the reel on into these two people, and they're just like cutting this girl up, and you're just like, what is happening? And she's like, I want to figure out if this is real or not. So the whole 8mm he's going through trying to figure out if this movie's real. But to me, that film reel is what the entirety of Last House on the Left was. Like, all sorts of crazy shit happens. There's raping and killing, and the dog gets set on fire at one point.
I forgot all about that.
You want to see him? I was like, I didn't give it away. I didn't talk about the burning of the dog and everything. I was like, you want to see a fucked up movie? Last House on the Left. I promise you.
Yeah, so I just remember, you mentioned that movie, and I was like, okay, because like you said, I was really into like stuff, and it's like, how messed up could it really be? I mean, really. So I go out to Blockbuster, I think had it. I rent the movie. There's a girl I was just kind of hanging out with at the time, so we went back to my house. My mom was up, so I was like, yeah, we're going to watch a movie. And so we're watching it, and spoilers if nobody's seen it. But like 2/3 of the way in, I'm like, oh, man, I can't wait to talk to Rich about this because this movie is fucked up. And all of a sudden, there's a scene where the mom takes this lady down, or takes this guy down to the pool, and she starts, going down on it. I'm like, okay, this is weird, because basically they were trying to kill their daughter or something like that.
Yeah.
And she ends up biting his dick off, and I'm like, all right, pull out the phone, call work, let it ring. I'm like, yeah, is Rich there? Like, what the fuck did you just make me watch?
That's exactly that's the call I remember verbatim, because it was in the same day. I was like, oh, you should see this movie, and you were like, oh, okay. So I didn't think anything of it. I was thinking, he might get it the next time he's at the video store or whatever. And then like 3 hours later, there's somebody on the phone for you. So I pick it up, and it wasn't even a hey, how's it going to Shawn, or hello. It was, what the fuck did you make me watch? And I'm like, it's fucked up, isn't it? I was like, which part are you at? He's like, the girl bit his fucking dick off. I'm like, it gets worse. And you're like, no, it can't. I'm like, it does. That's my earliest memory, was getting a phone call. I remember I was at work, and it was the middle of the dinner rush, and I get this phone call about Last House on the Left.
I forgot all about that. That was probably one of the funniest things ever. Yeah, so that happened. And I think both of us at work would. We're already there, and it would get. We'd be there till 10 or 11. And so typically I would just say, like, hey, I'll close. I'm already here, so what's the point of leaving? It's 10 o'clock.
Right.
And so we'd stay there till 1 or 2, and then we started getting into watching movies after work. And I think I had just seen Clerks, and kind of get on like the Kevin Smith and just that kind of stuff. Is that you're like, oh well, here's his other movies, and I hadn't seen any of them. So we kind of started a View Askew kind of marathon. We started with Mallrats, and then moved on to Chasing Amy, and kind of watched all those. And so that really sparked our kind of like late night movie time at work.
Yeah, and then we usually had more people. You see, I was the manager at the time, so usually like we'd lock the doors, when it was closing time, and I'd have deposits to count and stuff like that. So usually it was just like, people were like, oh, I don't really want to go. They're like, there isn't really anything going on at the house, and I'm like, well, just sit here. I was like, I'll put a movie in. And we worked in the sports bar, and in the sports bar there were 37 TVs, not including a giant ass big screen. And so it was usually like, oh, I'll put a movie on the big screen, and I'll finish whatever crap I got to do, and as long as we clean up after ourselves, no harm, no foul. So yeah, it was usually we started with a View Askew marathon, and then I was a bit reluctant to go into horror movies because it was this open area into the mall, and I'm thinking like security guards are gonna walk by and like hear people screaming and hear like chainsaws going off, but whatever. Then I think we moved on to video games. I think I brought my PlayStation.
Yeah,
and then we started playing Guitar Hero.
That was my first exposure to Guitar Hero, and you had awesome sound there because it's the full like restaurant sound. So you'd be playing like Fat Lip by Sum 41, and you just get into it. You kind of do a jump and you look around, and you're in the back doing stuff at the time. So it's like, man, it just makes you feel like being a rock star, just getting to see that on the big screen and just plugging away on this plastic guitar.
That's when those games were big. Honestly, those Guitar Hero to me kind of had like a .com bubble burst where like there was like a bunch out. You had Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and then they all just kind of like fizzled out and died off. Like now you can probably go to GameStop and get Guitar Hero 1 through 5 for $5.
Yeah, somebody recently just told me they bought a bunch of songs for Rock Band, so they're still putting out music and stuff that you can download and play. So there's still a market out there, but I'm not sure how many people are playing it. But yeah, you could probably walk in and buy a whole set for really cheap.
Yeah. So let's see. So we did that, and then we had a third friend of ours who was Kevin. Kevin had an apartment that was about a mile down the street. So usually we'd close, then we got in the habit of closing and then going over there and playing games or drinking or both.
Yeah, his spot was kind of the hub for all that for a little bit. There was like a little stretch where, because it was weird because I was kind of the youngest of a lot of the people there, and you weren't really big into the like going out to bars and whatnot scene. So there's a 3-month period where all the other servers and whatnot weren't quite old enough to go out, but then they hit that gap where they started going out, and then we kind of stopped going to Kevin's because everybody was going out.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we continued the movie and video games. But then that's when you kind of introduced me to the world of gaming.
Because you show the crazy a little bit at a time. It's like when you meet a girl, It's like this is me. This is the best of me, and then I'm going to show you the best of me plus a little that's not so great, and then you just kind of increment it. And then if they stick around, then it just keeps going.
You kind of, you don't put it all on Front Street first. It's like, just a little bit of time to see what you can take. Like, oh, no, I was kidding. I don't really game. That's weird.
I saw I experimented in college.
So you say, because like all I've ever heard about is like, I knew like there was experience points and like there was levels, but whenever I thought of it, I thought it was like this big like official thing. It's like, oh, I have a level 22 rogue. And like I thought that was something official. And so you invited me out for the first time. It was over at your place, and you had like 10 people there. It was a big group, and so it's pretty intimidating already. I think you rolled up my character. And so we're kind of playing. It's a little bit overwhelming, but it was a good time. And then
Did we do D&D?
Yeah, we did D&D the first time.
Okay.
That was the the time where we were fighting in some kind of area, and Lenny, there was like some green slime, so we ended up throwing fire on it.
Oh yeah, and then it enveloped somebody.
Yeah, and he's just
it
like
enveloped somebody first, and then he's like, "Kill it with fire."
Yeah.
And
and then he catches the person on fire and the slime, and he's like, "Oh well, see ya," and just runs out of the room.
he runs off, and little did he know the fire really didn't do anything. But
But it was a good time, and then you introduced me to the fact that you guys did that like once a month on a Saturday, and it was basically a full day thing. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. It'd be kind of fun. And that's where you introduced me to the Star Wars campaigns.
yeah,
And we did that for a long time. That was pretty much really my first introduction to gaming was the Star Wars kind of environment.
that was a whole year. I think actually no, that went on longer than a year. That went on like 14, 15 months.
Yeah, it went on it was all through college. I think we just started doing more D&D stuff like about the time I moved away from town.
Yeah. Well, that Star Wars adventure, I remember Star Wars didn't publish any actual adventures because they came out with this new thing called Saga Edition, and it was right before LucasArts didn't renew their license to put out any more products. So they had all these source books, but they didn't have any adventures. They did have one campaign that would take you from level 1 to 20. By the time they came out with that, though, I was already in the middle of a campaign that I created myself. And it didn't take, it wouldn't, it was just like, probably like 3 or 4 adventures thrown together. I really liked that campaign, though. But then what I did is I tied, because I didn't want you guys to have to roll up new characters and everything, so I just took this one campaign that they had and just adapted it and kind of made everything a bit tougher, and it worked out. It really did work out. That was probably the most pleased I've been with a game that I've ran in a long while.
Yeah, it was a blast. I remember because I kind of had an idea with my characters that I wanted them to go the dark side right away. Not right away, but that's what I had them going towards. And so I just kept, playing him as that character who was kind of just, scared of or afraid of, just the environment. And in that one, if you had so many dark side points, you end up losing the character. And that was kind of cool to be able to take a character that we're playing and actually institute it as part of, like an NPC, like an actual piece of that campaign.
Yeah, I ended up making him the main villain towards the end. And to me, it added all the thematic elements of the movies, of this whole concept of, transgression and eventually redemption, because eventually I think he wanted to fight at the end, but you refused to fight him, and you ended up turning him back. It was like Return of the Jedi all over at the very end. But everybody loved that. Everybody had fun with that. So, everybody had their hero moment, and it was awesome. I was really, really happy with that.
Yeah, it was one of those scenarios where it's like everybody's seen the movie, so they had. I don't think I'd seen the movies at that point, but you just kind of had a knowing of like this is what Star Wars is. Whereas D&D, you've got a bunch of different. You've got like Lord of the Rings, you got Game of Thrones, you got all these things everywhere, but really Star Wars is just kind of one canon. So you kind of have a solid idea of what Star Wars is.
Well, plus I think it's also, like I said, to me, with Star Wars, it seemed more thematic. It was easier to come up to play these themes of, what it means to be a hero, or it seemed like the mechanics of the game, and also just the way an adventure plays out, it kind of begs for those questions, like what does it mean to be a hero, or what makes you as a character different than every other Joe Schmo that walks out of the cantina. And everybody kind of it kind of got into not really a metagame sense where it was asking questions of the actual players, but it really most of the guys we game with, they're not big role players. It's usually, let's go in, smash down the door, kill everything, grab the loot, and let's move on to the next room. But everybody really kind of got into it, and they really, they had attachments to their characters, and not only did they have attachments to their characters, but they developed attachments to other NPCs, and they even developed attachments to the villain, and that's what made him such a great villain, is the fact that you actually cared and there was a connection, and it worked out. Like I said,
I'd probably say that's one of the first campaigns where you knew who the villain by name for most of the game, because a lot of times whenever we play, because they're smash and grab kind of guys.
Exactly. It's there's the big bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But
what's his
wasn't
name?
The big bad guy. He had a name, and everybody knew his name, and they would call him by name.
Yeah, I was kind of spoiled with that because that was my very first experience with gaming. So I got a good dose of role playing. I got a good dose of just fighting and smashing. Because I think that was actually there was a few nights where there wasn't a ton of fighting, but it was still pretty exciting. I mean, everybody seemed to get into it, and I don't think anybody really wanted to quit. I think they wanted to keep continuing, but there just wasn't that material for us to do that.
Right. And also, I mean, especially that's what's one of the other things with Star Wars is once you complete the gigantic mission that you've spent all this time trying to complete, I mean, if you try and go further with it, it's almost anticlimactic.
Yeah.
It's it's hard to do. And if you look at Pathfinder, I mean, Pathfinder kind of tries to do the same thing, where they don't really have anything for above level 20, because they want you to play out to level 20, and then you have this big giant goal that you accomplish at the end, and then you start over.
Well, it seems like that's what everybody loves to do, though, because I mean, you get an idea for a character. I think you guys had a few D&D characters where you had above epic level, but I mean, it's always the creation of the character that everybody loves to do, and doing from the experience that you've had, it's okay, well, I usually play a paladin, but I always play him this way, so I'm gonna try and play him this way this time. I know these feats I want, and it just helps kind of break it up. And a lot of times too, if you're stuck with the same character to get to 20th level, that takes a long time.
It does.
So
yes, it does.
When you get to that point, you're like, okay, well, I kind of want to play something different. I want to play a different character.
Or just tweak, or if I did this over again, I'd do this differently. I'd change this up. I'd, specialize in a different weapon or whatever. But honestly, I would say at this point, you game way more than I do. Anymore with me, it's sporadic. I have my thing once a month, and I might try and squeeze in something else here or there, but I mean, I think you have a game going every week. This is kind of one of those, the student has become the master.
Yeah, so I started listening to, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but it's the Nerd Poker with Brian Posehn.
No, you've told me about it a couple times, but I haven't caught it yet.
Because I always get that itch, because Dave always texts me. It's like, hey, game day's this Saturday. And there's about a year and a half I took off, because just getting back to town, it's a 2-hour drive. So by the time you get home, you got to see the parents, and then you go game all day. Then you go home, you sleep in because you game till 2 in the morning. And so you got to see the parents. By the time you leave, you're getting back to town 6 or 7, and just kind of, takes a weekend and just kind of makes it difficult to get to relax any.
Right.
So I kind of stopped going. And I started listening to that podcast again, and it just really just got that gaming, fire going again. And texted some guys at work. It was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And they said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. None of them have played before. And so got a group of 8 together, and we played about every month for about 6 months, and we've kind of missed the last few because of weather or because of stuff coming up. But all the guys seem to really like it, and they keep asking me when we're going to get it kicked up again. And
that's awesome. And actually, you don't do published adventures. You create your own. Which, I mean, I haven't had I think I've had a chance to play through maybe snippets of the campaign you're doing now, but I mean, it's good. There's you got and the fact that it's all. I don't. Do you actually use anything? Do you pull things? Because you run Pathfinder. Do you pull anything from the actual Pathfinder world, or are you just using their rules and making your own? Cities, towns, and.
Well, for the most part, the city's an actual city, and I got the published book on that, and I try to keep it close to that. I know there's a campaign that takes place there that the guys have played, and there's a character in there that I think he's like an undercover hero in the city. So like in this version of this this world, he isn't that guy. He's just the guy I could say he is, basically. But for the most part, it's all just made up on me. I've built in that city, so I kind of take pieces from it that I want to do. Like, the gangs are the actual gangs from there, but I create the gang members, and just kind of the general idea of where it's going. I've kind of tried to make that up on my own. I've taken pieces of, because there's a campaign you ran where you basically sent all the guys to like a venturing school.
I did, yeah.
And I love
that was a cool idea. That was an idea that I kind of wanted to play out a bit more, but then I got busy and life kind of hit me in the chest, but it worked out, and.
Well, it's a great idea because that's basically how I start this campaign. Is they all have basically given up all their goods to come to an academy or like a training academy to become adventurers. And it's a lot easier to do that because the first 3 levels I think are real difficult because it's like if you're a sorcerer, it's like you're fighting a dog, you might die.
Right.
But with this, it was just more
the dog
controlled.
Bites your ankle and then you fall over dead.
Take 1d3 damage. Okay.
No.
So and it kind of allows the people to get to know their character, and I think it was good for the guys that play here since they've never played before. Gave them the opportunity to kind of feel stuff out, and it's more controlled.
Right. And also it kind of gives them a chance to kind of bond together as a group a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So I've kind of taken that idea and ran with it. The campaign's kind of grown. I kind of have a general idea, but each time I write a different chapter, like it kind of changes just a little bit. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm really a big fan of, like you've seemed to have done this in yours, is just make it more of a sandbox.
Exactly.
Because if you allow that, it's like, well, I want to try and go here or do this. If it's strictly on paper, it's like, well, I don't know what you can do there. Like I have to make it up on the fly, and it could contradict what the campaign says.
Exactly.
But with this, it's like it's all me. It's if you don't want to go fight the person I say, say where you want to go, and I'll make up whatever. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it adds the creativity of it adds more freedom not only for you but for the players, and thereby enhancing the whole game as a whole.
I think like the group we play back in town is they're not. There's not really that one person who's like, oh well, that's not really 100% correct in the rules. And they're jerks about it. It's a bunch of guys getting together, bullshitting, and just having a good time.
Right.
That's kind of how I've always explained it to people. It's like, because whenever you say like I'm gonna go play Dungeons and Dragons, like instantly people think about like those cartoons where they talk about
the flares pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you end up in a toilet, and they're like, nerd.
But I tell people it's like 80% bullshitting, like probably 15% setting up your character, and maybe 5% playing.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like, it's a game. Like, it's almost, let's bring it back full circle. It's like this podcast. It's a reason to get a bunch of people, to get your friends together and sit and talk. I mean, there's so many games where like where we end up talking about music and movies, and it's a male bonding experience in a way.
Yeah, that was the thing I missed the most. Is like it's a bunch of hours just to talk about movies and games and just kind of hang out.
And that's exactly what we'll be doing.
Heck yeah! So we've got basically 10 years of friendship going. I don't know if you realize that, but we've basically known each other for 10 full years now. So
I feel
over
old. You just make me feel old.
I know, for over a third of my life.
I'm in my 30s. I didn't feel like I was in my 30s until last week when I turned 32. Now I feel like I'm in my 30s, and I'm not really sure how I'm taking that.
Well, I've got like a year and a half till I hit 30, so I'll see how that goes.
30's not that bad. It kind of feels like a milestone. You kind of like you kind of feel like you have your 20s behind you, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm an adult, and then like the next day, then you're like, oh, I'm not an adult. No.
Well, so this was a blast. This is kind of our first one. Just kind of make sure all the logistics of everything works. But do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, yeah, but we say, well, that's the carrot. We
That's
hold
right.
out the stick.
There will be
say, tune into the next one, and then the carrot is I have so many things to talk about.
I think it's going to be kind of cool because like we've been talking for, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 minutes. I feel like we've just started. So
do I. That's I thinking the exact same thing.
all right. Well, just some stuff. So we've got a Twitter account. If you want to follow us, it's at Language of Bro, and we also have a Gmail account, which is Language of Bromance at gmail.com. Feel free to send us any suggestions on things to talk about or any comments about what we can do better, or just to say hey is good as well. All right, well, I guess that's all the bromance we have left for this show. So this is Shawn.
And this is Richard.
I say we eat the beaver.
Yeah. Oh, we're so keeping that.